Gwenpool explained. She doesn't even go here. Let's face it, folks. There are a lot of superheroes out there these days. We've got A-listers, B-listers, C-listers, all the way down to the bottom of the proverbial barrel, where I presume we'd find dupe. But out of them all, never before have we seen a hero quite like the one and only unbelievable Gwenpool. Yes, her costume might bear a passing resemblance to a certain merc with a well-renowned mouth, and yes, she might even look a little like one of Peter Parker's exes. But make no mistake, the character of Gwenpool is anything but derivative. In fact, she's one of the most dynamic and enterprising new faces the Marvel Universe has seen in years. Gwenpool came to shake things up as only an outsider can, and since she made herself at home in the Marvel Universe, she's proved herself a true master of mayhem and madness. Today, we're going to be going over just who exactly this stylish scallywag is behind the mask, as well as walking through all that Gwenpool has been going through since donning her very own spandex suit. Is she a hero, a villain, or something in between? That'll be for you to decide, dear audience. But first, let's figure out how the heck this pink pajamaed pool got here in the first place. 1. The beguiling genesis of Gwenpool. Gwenpool made herself known to the Marvel Universe in one of the most brazen introductions ever, blatantly stealing from the Black Cat. Interrupting the illicit dealing of one of New York's most dangerous mobsters is one thing, but doing it on the back of a motorcycle while wearing nothing but a pink and white onesie is something else entirely. One is a death wish, the other is a statement. And if there's anything Gwenpool does best, it's making a statement. Just like when the powerless pink protagonist's next move was murdering Black Cat's top secret mole in the police department, who Gwen knew would be Felicia's best chance of tracking down her stolen goods. Gwenpool had now been on the scene for all of 24 hours and had outmaneuvered the Black Cat twice. Not an easy feat for even the most skilled mercenaries. Desperate and furious, the Black Cat turned to one of New York's least popular private eyes, one Howard the Duck, to help her find this newly minted nuisance. Little did she know, Gwenpool was already 2 steps ahead of the ferocious feline and had been hiding under Howard's desk during the entire meeting. Howard, unsure of just who exactly he'd been hiding under his desk, promptly asked Gwenpool to explain herself. She replied by suddenly pulling her guns on Howard, revealing she had assumed Black Cat would go to the Duck Detective for help and was planning on dispatching him as well to cover her tracks. Gwen chased Howard out onto the street, yelling after him, "What's the big deal if you die? You've disappeared from publication for months, years at a time. You'll just come back again eventually." Here we have our first real clue to Gwen's origins, and Howard picks up on the reveal quickly. "Pablo, what are you talking about? Do you think I'm a book? Madam, I am not a book," the duck quacks as he waddles for his life. You kind of are where I'm from," Gwen replies cheerily as she takes 2 shots at the runaway detective. "You're all just comic book characters in my world." Let's pause for just a moment to unpack, because this one moment perfectly explains Gwenpool's unique relationship to the world around her. Born and raised in the real world, the same universe where you're watching this video, Gwen grew up as an avid lover of superhero comics. But somehow, this rambunctious young adult was actually transported from our universe to the Marvel Universe. Once she arrived, though no one knows exactly how or when, the mild-mannered Gwenpool instantly knew what she had to do. She showed up at a local costume tailor and asked for the best supersuit money could buy. Gwen figured, "I'm new in town, and I've noticed that if you're not wearing a mask or a cape, you're just an extra." The tailor, Big Ronnie, misread Gwen's first and last name on her application form as Gwenpool, and thus created a costume reminiscent of the famous regenerating degenerate. This, while not what Gwen imagined for her suit, actually fits her attitude perfectly, as both Deadpool and Gwenpool are 2 of the only people on Earth who fully comprehend that they're living in a comic book. Coming from the real world into a marvelous dimension of superheroic shenanigans, Gwen had a few blaring misconceptions about how to treat the new world around her. Because she knows she's living in the pages of a comic, she initially believed there to be virtually no consequences to her actions. For example, when Howard asks what exactly she stole from Black Cat anyway, Gwen tells him, "Oh, I read about it a while ago. A doomsday cult created an unstoppable humanity-destroying virus. Anyway, I sold it to Hydra." At this, Howard comes out from behind cover and glares Gwen straight in the face. "You what? Why did you do that?" he quacked in rage. "I needed money," Gwen shrugs. Besides, she figures, it's fine, the Avengers will handle it, right? At this point, Howard is just about fit to burst. The Avengers, he explained, are off-planet on a highly important mission. "The Avengers solve a lot of world-destroying problems, this I will admit," Howard quacks angrily at Gwen. "But you are acting like this is fictional. So please, let me assure you that this is all very real to me." This, at its core, is a moment of huge clarity for Gwen. Having seen, heard, and read about the Marvel Universe through comics for so many years, when she actually arrived there, Gwen assumed there were no consequences, no stakes. In this fantastical universe, Gwen imagined the good guys always win. Therefore, she could be as self-serving and reckless as she wanted without fear of repercussions. What Howard teaches Gwen during their first mission together is that the universe she now inhabits may be absurd, whimsical, and extraordinary, but that doesn't mean she can treat it like it doesn't matter. From one outcast from another universe to another, Howard offers his new friend, "Welcome to your new home. Please stop trying to destroy it." Together, side by side, Gwenpool and the web-footed detective break into Hydra's base, steal back the world-ending pathogen, and then use the dirty money Gwen had been paid to buy it back from Black Cat herself. At the end of the adventure, not only had the Pink Pool nearly died by injecting herself with the contagion, she traded her new fortune just to keep the virus out of dubious hands. "You just gave up millions of Hydra dollars to help me out," Howard admits. "I think you actually figured out how to be a superhero." Gwen took all she learned from her first duck-billed mentor and decided it was time to spread her wings. How, you ask? Well, that's easy. By following in the Pool family footsteps and becoming a mercenary, of course. But before we see what comes next for Marvel's newest mercenary, be sure to subscribe to the channel with notifications on to never miss an upload, and smash that like button for some plot armor today. But for now, let's get back into the action. 2. Mercenary miscommunication. Gwen took to mercenary life like a fish to water. In only her first hired hit, Gwen easily slayed the powerful snake swordsman Orto, promptly foiling a high-octane bank robbery immediately after. Riding high, these 2 early victories left the young merc with a mouth with both a successful assassination on her resume, as well as an unenthusiastic sidekick, Cecil. Unfortunately, after her early wins, things turned sour for the young Pool extremely quickly. Gwen allowed herself to get sucked into an extremely dangerous job, offering a tremendous payout, infiltrating a heavily armed military base, only to find someone had beaten her to the punch. Gwen unceremoniously kills the agent who did all the work for her, and then publicly claims that her victory was single-handed. This lie hugely boosts Gwen's reputation as a mercenary and has everyone believing this pink, non-powered private eye was powerful enough to take down a small army by herself. Unsurprisingly, this attracts the eyes of the actual perpetrator behind the hit, MODOK. When MODOK arrives at Gwen's apartment in an explosion of fire and dust, he offers Gwenpool a proposition. "So, you are Gwenpool. You are the best," he begins. "Yeah, baby, you know it," chirped Gwen. "You have destroyed my best, and now you are my best," MODOK continues. "You work for me now. Cooperate or there will be consequences." Gwen, still unconvinced that this new comic book universe even has consequences for heroes, laughs in MODOK's face at his offer. Gwen cackles right up until the cyborg reduces Cecil to a pile of smoldering ash at her feet. Shocked and distraught, Gwen quickly realizes it's join or die. Tears streaking down her face, Gwen agrees to MODOK's terms and officially goes from hero to henchman. Even though she's stuck under MODOK's thumb, Gwen vows to kill the mechanical tyrant for murdering Cecil in cold blood. Of course, at this point, MODOK still believes Gwenpool is a one-woman fighting machine, capable of taking down an entire military installation and killing his former best agent in one-on-one combat. Her new boss was expecting big things, and it seemed Gwen's lies had caught up with her sooner than she had hoped. Gwen's situation turned especially sour after her first mission on MODOK's hit squad went completely sideways, with Thor arriving to thwart the team's assassination attempt. After seeing Gwenpool operate in the field with nearly no battle expertise of any kind, one of her teammates, Batroc the Leaper, deduces that Gwen is a fraud and threatens to tattle to MODOK. "You cannot shoot, you cannot fight, no powers to speak of," Batroc coldly accuses Gwen. "You compromised our mission with your foolishness. You are a fraud, and I'm going to tell on you." Thankfully, Gwen proves to Batroc that she can be useful by flexing her encyclopedic knowledge of all things Marvel. See, Gwen might not have a fancy healing factor or claws in her hands, but she knows just about every hero and villain's secret identity and skeleton in a closet from her time in the real world reading comics. Batroc sees the value in this and agrees to give Gwen some basic combat and firearm training to help her survive out in the field. It's around this time that Gwen also gets some help from Doctor Strange, who assists the interdimensional immigrant to setting up a driver's license, bank account, and other logistically essential records. As the Doctor says, "I can make it as though you've lived in our universe your whole life. It's not a total rewrite, but it'll get you a social security number." However, this assistance would immediately reveal to MODOK that his newest employee actually has no outstanding abilities nor superpowered history of any kind. Seeing he's had the wool pulled over his giant, gross eyes leaves MODOK positively livid, and he sets his sight on killing Gwenpool once and for all. After forcing Gwen to admit that she was completely and utterly untrained, MODOK couldn't help but ask, "How did you kill my agent? Last chance. What secret ability do you have that let you jeopardize my mission and take the life of my finest assassin?" Gwen, realizing the jig was up, told the megalomaniac the truth. "I pushed him in the furnace while he wasn't looking." This indignity was too much for MODOK to bear, and he immediately tried to incinerate the burgeoning pink mercenary. Though Gwenpool didn't show up to her first boss battle unprepared. Using the money MODOK had been paying her, she equipped herself with some of the finest gadgets money could buy. With her newly acquired weapons, her freshly trained combat skills, and a little help from the ghost of Cecil, Gwen was able to dispatch MODOK with extreme prejudice. Having officially triumphed over her first supervillain, Gwen was crowned the leader of her mischievous little task force. At long last, things were finally looking up from our favorite meta-mercenary. That is, until 3. Powering up. After eventually disbanding the MODOK squad and striking off on her own, Gwen came to the jarring realization that multiversal copies of her real-world family were living and breathing within the Marvel Universe. After lots of consideration, Gwen eventually decided to reach out to her old new family. First, she contacted her brother, Teddy, and tried to explain the situation. Hey, this is a comic book world, so you might be able to adjust to this a little faster than normal. In another universe, you would be my brother." Teddy, however, seemed unfazed by Gwenpool's sudden arrival on their doorstep. "Gwen," he said with a slight scowl, "you finally showed up." Almost as soon as Gwen had found her long-lost brother, he unceremoniously pulled her through a portal to, as he put it, back home. Back to before you came to this universe. Gwenpool, even as she sucked through the wormhole back to her original dimension, protests, No, I don't want to go back!" But the deed was already done. Gwen arrives back home in the real world with her real brother and real family. Feeling deflated, readjusting back to normal life took a long time for Gwen, whose day-to-day wasn't nearly as exciting or flashy as it had been during her superhero hijinks. Slowly but surely, though, Gwenpool went back to being Gwen. Or so she thought. Strangely, even back in reality, Gwen continued to notice strange comic book giveaways like title cards and captions. Soon enough, Gwen began pushing the boundaries of the space around her and finding new ways to move through and interact with her world. She could grab panel borders, interact physically with her own thought bubbles, and even found she was able to break the structure of the pages she inhabited and bend them to her will. Ironically, though her time as Gwenpool found her severely lacking in the superpower department, it seemed that Gwen was finally developing some powers of her own. All of these goings-on tipped Gwen off to one enormous secret. She never actually left the comic book world in the first place. The world she'd been led to believe was her home dimension was actually nothing but a farce. A Truman Show-esque trap was laid out especially for her, constructed from her memories of home. Once she uses her newfound fourth wall powers to return to the Marvel Universe, Gwenpool finds the world in shambles. Having traveled deep into the future, the heroes of the planet, including Miles Morales, inform Gwen that she will one day become a terrible villain and attempt to take her into custody. Gwen uses her panel-bending powers to escape, but only temporarily. When Miles finally catches her, he tells Gwen that eventually, in the future, she will snap, revealing all of the superhero's secret identities to the public, causing mass confusion, chaos, and death as the planet's villains jumped at the chance to claim their revenge. After a brief confrontation with her future self, Gwen uses her meta powers to erase her future from existence, setting the Marvel Universe back on course at the cost of real chunk out of my lifespan, she says. After this sizable sacrifice on her part, Gwen finds herself slightly lost and nearing the end of her series. Though, in the unbelievable Gwenpool's final issue, a heroic future version of Gwen appears to her and assures Gwen that her story is far from over. 4. West Coast Avengers and a New Beginning. After her solo adventures came to a close, Gwen was offered to join a recently founded West Coast Avengers team by her pal Kate Bishop. The team was overseen by both Hawkeyes, Clint and Kate, and was made up of America Chavez, Fuse, and the mutant telepath Quentin Quire. Apart from just her first super team experience, her time on the West Coast also saw Gwen engaging in an off-and-on love affair with fellow teammate Quentin. Though Gwen and Quire might seem like a surprising pair at first, the heated chemistry the two shared consistently had a way of turning their shouting matches into makeout sessions. Gwen's access to the gutter, the extra-dimensional force of her powers over reality, proved invaluable to the team on a number of occasions. And though the squad would eventually split, Gwenpool's time with the West Coast Avengers under the direct tutelage of both Clint Barton and Kate Bishop would go a long way toward upping Gwen's reputation as a hero and her public image. Another extremely important decision Gwen made during her time with the WCA was the adoption of Jeff the Landshark, who, as I'm sure we can all agree, is just about the cutest super pet of all time. I mean, come on, just look at him! Luckily for Jeff, his new adopted mother's fighting skills had also been seen to improve drastically during her time on the West Coast. Whereas she had started her journey through the Marvel Universe with no training and no powers, Gwen was now capable of single-handedly defeating roomfuls of combatants and had developed massively versatile powers over reality itself via the fourth wall. After the West Coast Avengers and she and Quentin split up, Gwenpool started growing more and more frantic in her antics. She used her reality warping powers to set up an extra-dimensional fighting ring for some of the most famous heroes on the planet, forcing them to battle to boost her ratings. After summoning multiple different versions of herself to battle through the Hulk, Gwenpool finds herself face-to-face with her final boss, Kamala Khan? That's right! When the dust settled, Gwen's old friend Miss Marvel stood across the beach as the last contender. "So, you wanna..." Gwen started before Kamala interrupted her. "I don't want to fight you, Gwen," Miss Marvel says. "I think we should talk." "No, thank you," Gwen blurts out cheerily, but Miss Marvel isn't having any of it. "Gwen, you don't seem okay," Kamala says. This gives Gwen pause. You can tell?" she says, looking Kamala in the eyes for the first time. "Yeah, I mean, the wackiness, the antics, it's gotten a lot worse. And to someone who knows you, someone who's seen the antics in the past, now you just seem, manic." Gwen's eyes go wide as someone finally puts words to her troubles. "Gwen, it's just really obvious you're not okay," Kamala continues. "Please just tell me what's going on." Gwen, tears streaking down her face, begs Miss Marvel, "Can you just stop looking at me like that? You're making this harder." "I just want to help," her friend replies comfortingly. "Then fight me!" Gwen desperately yells and throws a punch. Kamala continues to refuse Gwen's attacks until eventually the Pink Pool is forced to sit and talk with her friend. As Gwenpool starts to explain to Kamala how she's from another universe in which all Marvel characters are comic characters, her walls start to come down. After Gwen's finished her tragic tale of woe, Kamala calmly looks at Gwen and says, "So, I've been thinking, what if you only developed your powers semi-recently? And that's why you don't know their source?" "Develop them?" Gwen asked, her curiosity piqued by the word. "Yeah," Kamala suggests. "It's natural for some species to develop late in life, especially around adolescence." Gwen picks up on the implication immediately. "Like a mutant?" she says, turning around to look her friend once more in the eyes. Softly and supportively, Kamala offers Gwen an alternate backstory, one in which the appearance of her reality-altering powers was so jarring for the young mutant that she abstracted her experience into a reality where she was a normal, comic-loving teen. At some point, Gwen interjects, "Just stop. Please, you're right. I made it all up. There is no real world. I'm from here and I always have been." With that, Gwen forfeits their fight, saying only, "Congrats on your victory, Kamala. You killed me with kindness." Thinking that her time in the Marvel Universe is finally coming to a close, Gwenpool enters the gutter to escape one last time from the world she had come to love so deeply. "I'm not a mutant. I know that," she admits solemnly. "And I know that this is how I die. And if I wanted to, I could use my remaining page space to give myself a more dignified ending. But I'm just so tired. No one will miss me anyway." But just as Gwen accepts her end, she notices a strange sight she's never noticed before in the gutter. A Krakoan gate, a famous entrance to the mutant homeland of Krakoa. When she travels through it, Gwen finds herself amongst the beautiful forest of the mutant island nation. "Krakoa saved me?" she says, bewildered. I'm a mutant now? I get to exist!" With this, Gwen breaks down into tears and falls to her knees. Wolverine arrives behind her with a comforting hand. "You're safe here now. You don't have to worry about what's behind you." Logan tells Gwen as he helps her to her feet. Gwen even quickly reunited with her old flame Quentin Quire before quickly jumping back to her white space power vacuum to make sure she still has access to her powers. To her relief, it seems her powers were unaffected by her sudden alteration. As it turns out, using her unique reality warping abilities, Gwen managed to rewrite her own canon and turn herself into a mutant, giving herself not only a new home, but a loving, supportive community to surround her and help her through whatever comes next. Thanks so much for watching today's video. What did you think of the unbelievable newest addition to the pool party? Let us know in the comments. And on behalf of all of us here at Plot Armor Comics, have a wonderful day.